Okay, so to start, first thing you'll need, make sure you have the physical animation component. That's what will allow you to have these things and this thing. And for this little experiment I didn't actually have a character with a tail. So what I did is I have a rope that I rigged a while back for another project, and it has about 30 bones. So each one is a collision, and then if you watch the Boomer video, you'll understand like how the constraints go in between each other and just link up basically. But pretty much every single one of these constraints is the exact same. If I simulate it, then it's gonna behave like a rope as expected, and then you can just drag it around, whatever. So that's just the basics of what I did to try and simulate character tail. Otherwise, it's going to be exactly the same. The really only difference I made is for the set skeleton, well, for each one of these actually. What I did is I plugged in the rope rig instead of character. So what you'll want to do is plug in the character into the skeleton mesh component for this one and for this one here. And for the bones, what I did is this is the first bone in the rope for me. So what you'll want to do is potentially use the second bone similar to what I did. Otherwise, well, it might be okay, but for me, if I use this bone, it just falls right off the character, but it's also not attached to the character, so that's probably why it's happening. Anyways, you should be fine, but if it does happen and it's just like your tail drops to the ground, just use this bone instead, the second one. Oh, and another big thing you're going to want is for, like, obviously, again, this is just the rope, but for your character, you'll want to make sure your collisions down here, you want to make sure this is not set to no collision. You want collision enabled. Technically, you could have all these disabled and it would work the same. Unreal just needs this enabled, otherwise we'll get an error. That's the big thing, but other than that, it should be fine. So with testing this, what I have at first is local simulation off and just orientation set to 300. All these other values, I understand them, but I also don't. So you just kind of got to play around with them if you want to see how they interact. I think I went over a little bit in the Boomer video, but it really can be different for every rig that you're working with. So with just this settings I have for testing this, this is how I got the tail to behave. It's not great, and because I don't have any animations, it's not going to reinforce what physical animation can actually do for your character, because obviously in your video I noticed like the tails even have like little idle animations and stuff, and you can preserve that. I know in the Boomer video you can see it preserves that animation on top of giving it a physical aesthetic. Okay, so this is what you got for having local simulation off. When you have local simulation on, the value needs to be a bit higher. It's just generally how it is. It's the main difference between world and local. What I've come to learn is local is going to do the animation or the physics based off the character itself, and world is going to do the physics based off the world. It's different calculations, but generally local is going to be a lot more consistent with the character, I guess you can put. So as you can see, with it being world right here, it kind of looks like this. It has a little bit of lift and drag. And then if I give it the local instead, whoop, I try to keep the value generally the same. You'll notice it has a little bit more whippiness and it has a little bit more strength to it. So it kind of looks a little nice, but it kind of depends on the character, what you want it to do. But with local too, you'll have your own set of problems. Like if I stand still, you can see the tail kind of has a life of its own a little bit. Now I think that's because of the way I made my weight paint for my rope, and this is also scaled down. The rope's actually gigantic, so it's really just probably my fault. But if not, I mean, you can see the difference here, because when I'm standing still with this version, it's not happening. I mean, it's also not hitting it on the tip, but you can kind of see the difference there. And also with both of these, they can really be influenced by the settings of the bone bodies. So I can just say all these. If I change the linear dampening on these, and basically what linear dampening is how easily the object moves in the world, so like forward, backward, left, right, up, down, and angular dampening is how easily it rotates. I think I went over that movie video, but it's just something to keep in mind. So if I turn this from 0.5 up into 5, sure, you'll see it'll have a lot more drag. But this also kind of makes it a little more stiff. Ignore the wiggliness. I think that's just a problem with my weight paint, but yeah, you can see it has a certain influence. If I even just turn it down to like 2-ish instead of going that high, you'll see it does kind of carry that same drag, but it does a weird thing to the tip, and I'm not really a big fan of that. And you can see when you slow down, it also kind of does that. Again, there's no animation on this one. Yours does have animation, so this physics is going to be applied on top. It's not going to overtake your animation. It's just going to add to it. But if I go back in here, I turn this to 0.5, and then if I do the angular damping instead, let's go to like 3. You notice I have a bit more of a difference. It's kind of harder to see because it's only really when it's rotating. If I actually turn it up way more, 15, you can notice a little bit more. It's very subtle, and when you're messing with linear and angular damping, you really want to play with both of them. And in terms of the constraints, because it is going to be a little bit different than the Boomer video, these are the settings I have. I think the only real thing, so linear limits themselves are locked. Angular is all this, 90, 45, 90. Soft constraint, it's just default settings on those, I think, and then leave it at slurp. And then for the collisions themselves, same thing with the Boomer video. The bones that are next to each other, you want to click on them and say disable collision, so that way they're not going to be interacting and just messing with each other at all. But yeah, hopefully this was useful to you. Hopefully at least points you in the right direction. I know you said you're a bit newer to Unreal and working in it and stuff, but hopefully with the Boomer video and with this just showing a little bit of how the tail connects and stuff, you should get a better idea with it, and with your animations added with it, which it will do automatically with this. The physical animation just adds it on top of it. So you don't have anything to worry about there. All you really need to worry about is just these settings. You need to make sure, again, rope rig, it's separate, but you want to make sure your character actually does have collision enabled. And I think that's pretty much it. You don't need to simulate physics here because what you're doing is simulating the bones themselves, not actual character. If you simulate the character, it's just going to melt into a pile of mush. So don't hit that button. But yeah, hopefully this is all good for you. Hopefully it's useful. Again, if you have any questions, if there's anything I can help you with further, let me know. I'll experiment more. Hopefully I can get back a little bit sooner than I did this time, but we'll see. But yeah, no worries at all. Feel free to reach out, and hopefully this helped you.